Welcome to the Gangcast, aka the Games and Not Games podcast. I'm Janet Garcia, and joining me as always is Isaiah Smith.
Hello.
And our cat Bruce is also here for audio listeners.
Meow, meow.
Yeah, she says meow, meow. How are you doing, Isaiah? We had a somewhat last second planned break from the show. So.
Yeah, no, it was, there were a lot of plans that as GDC got closer, just kind of went out the window. It was like, you know what? We just got roll with the punches. We got our schedule's kind of in flux right now. We got so many hours before we need to head out or do this or do that. We'll make some tough cuts and just come back stronger.
Tough cuts at the quarterly retreat. Yeah, some people didn't come back. Yeah, we knew we were going to take at least a week off, but we had initially planned to do an episode right before. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, or we don't, because especially with the editing time, which is that's like
honestly
a
that would
task.
have been the hardest thing.
Yeah, because recording isn't too bad, but then like, well, you're gonna be able to edit in
upload
the one day that we have,
that, yeah.
And actually not even one day, because we had we left on Sunday for GDC, so you would have had to like finish the edit in one day, get it all set up, and then drive all the way to San Francisco
and doing everything that
it was too much.
It was rough. It was a lot. So we just said no.
Yeah.
We'll just
you can just say no.
Push it. You know I was just listening to a podcast about video game development, and one of the quotes that the people pulled from someone else. So this is like a quote from a quote. Is that no game has ever finished without them moving the finish line, and it's like no podcast has ever been published without moving the finish line. Like you can apply that to so many different things.
Yeah.
And that is what we did.
And we're here now, and we're back, and we're going to get into games. For games, we're going to be discussing GDC, what we played, what things we maybe did tangential / outside of GDC, and talks we went to. But before we get into that, I do want to give a nod to our time capsule episodes. Yeah. We kind of inadvertently sloppily ended those because we sort of realized before sitting down to record more content that it doesn't really make sense to do this generation because this generation is still going.
Yeah.
So we're like, I guess we'll just end it, but we would have liked to have said, and now we're done. Like, you know what I mean? So that this is us now saying, and now we're done for now. Obviously generations are still going.
Yeah.
I hope they keep going. There's a chance that at one point there just aren't consoles anymore, and then we're done with the project. So
I guess, I feel like there would be sort of like these social contextual eras.
There'd be eras, but not gens, because there would just be PC. It's not like you're like the PC generation. It's like it's all PC. PC keeps going. You just change the parts out. But I think Nintendo is going to make their freak show consoles for a while longer. So we'll at least have that. Isaiah's favorite, the Wii U 2. Here in 2030. I couldn't say like 2022 because that already passed. Time is going by fast.
This is the first sorry, tangent. Mm-hmm. The Switch 2 is the first number 2 console that they are dropping, right?
Yeah.
There was no DS2. It was a 3DS.
But I mean, Xbox has never had a 2 either.
Yeah. I'm just saying like Nintendo's made I don't know 8 different platforms.
They don't do 2s, they do news.
The first time that or supers and all that. All right, well, hey.
Yeah, the Super Switch. They're like, no, we're not playing no games with this. I don't want anybody messing with my money. This is Switch 2.
Yeah, we want them to buy it.
And you go and tap that card to pay. Isaiah, can you share with us what our gaming time capsule looks like?
Yeah, so the gaming time capsule, as it stands right now, until this generation is over and we revisit this, is as follows. For the NES, we have Tetris. For the SNES, we have Super Mario World. For the Game Boy, we have Pokemon Yellow. For the N64, we have, of course, Super Mario 64. For the PlayStation, we have Metal Gear Solid. For the GameCube, Super Smash Bros. For the GBA, we have Metroid Fusion. Man, the game's so good. For the PS2, we have GTA Vice City. For the Xbox, we have Halo. For the Wii, we have Wii Sports. Classic. For the DS, we have Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. Deep cut. For the PS3, we have Portal 2. Played that recently, still holds. For the PSP, we have Final Fantasy Tactics, The War of the Lions. Great game. For the 360, we have Dead Space 2, one of my favorites. And this last gen, we have, for the Xbox One, we have Forza Horizon 3. For the PS4, we have The Last of Us Part 2. For the Vita, we have Tearaway. For the PlayStation VR, we have Beat Saber. For the Wii U, we have Splatoon. And for the 3DS, we have Kirby Planet Robobot.
Pretty solid.
It's a great list.
I'm looking back at that Wii U. I'm like, should have been Splatoon. Anyway, but I love Splatoon though. But yeah, we were trying to represent console gaming.
Yes.
And what console gaming is.
It's a time capsule for just sort of representation of console gaming across time from the big three. As best as we can.
Okay, maybe I should have put that Tropical Freeze in there. There's so many good Wii U games.
No, you definitely shouldn't have put Tropical Freeze in there.
Oh yeah, Isaiah. Since then, so, we're not really gonna do a whole thing on it, but since then, Isaiah played Tropical Freeze.
Yeah,
and
Splatoon's way better.
He hated it.
Freeze.
You don't like Splatoon either. Oh, you played Splatoon. I think you like Splatoon, right?
Yeah. I dislike Tropical Freeze.
Yeah. Can you explain why?
It's just Donkey Kong just feels ass to control.
He doesn't jump.
He doesn't have a floaty jump. Like he's got this float jump in like Smash Brothers. It's just absent here. He's got the level design is very basic. You got to double back on a lot of things. There's some stuff where I guess it's like in all the Donkey Kong games. It's like you accidentally go in this barrel. Oh, you're just fucked now. You got to progress forward. So that little K or that O that you wanted to collect, out of reach now. You can't do it. You got to play the game again. And it's like, well, that's just not fun. There's like a lot of design in that game that's just not fun.
I told Isaiah, just be Dixie. You're gonna have a better time. But he said no.
It's Donkey Kong Country.
Donkey Kong. Yeah, but it's too. You can just be Dixie, and then you can jump wherever you want, and do whatever you want.
Nah, man.
Donkey Kong is a game of seizing the moment.
If you're not, if
you're not there, if you can't bounce off that enemy and get to that ledge, you're just fucked. That's the end of the game.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I am very much anti Donkey Kong. Tropical Freeze.
I was playing it and I'm like, wow, this game is even better than I remember. It's so tough to like completionist that game. There's so many like hidden little things, and like we were pretty thorough.
None
and
of
still,
it's enticing.
You know what? You have your games and I have mine, but you really hated Tropical Freeze.
It was not a good time.
Yeah, just
it was fun playing with you.
I'm out $60, I had to rebuy because I didn't have it on Switch.
Which is also, man. I wish I had known you were gonna buy. I would have told you no.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I wanted to have fun.
Yeah,
I wanted to have fun with my friend.
And where'd that bring you?
Yeah, I forgot. We ended up maybe play. We'll get into, I guess, back in our co-op stuff, and we're playing some games together now. So, and we we did a bunch of stuff. I feel like there's been like a gap on because we don't always do what we've been playing, but we've like beat a bunch of games. Like we had like the Split Fiction, and then we're chipping away at other stuff. But anyway, on to GDC. That was our time capsule. And now Bruce is going to leave. GDC, the Game Developers Conference. First of all, I mean, we mentioned it briefly, I think, on like older episodes, but first credentialed thing. I mean, we did PAX, I think, was through Games and Not Games, maybe?
Ooh.
I don't know.
No, I think we just talked about PAX. You had a pass for PAX. I think I had to buy my pass for PAX.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
That's wild.
I know.
Not anymore, Isaiah.
Not anymore, though, baby.
Yeah, you're right. Because if you were credentialed, you would have been in that. You're like obsessed with the media rooms, you do have a nice media room for GDC. I will say it's like one of the few nice media rooms. But Isaiah, what was it like it was your first credential ever? Yeah. We were able to apply through the podcast. So thanks again, all the listeners and watchers, for helping make this a thing. We got past the GDC to GDC. That was hard to say. It was really cool. Yeah, you get there. We got there, a little bit early, picked up our badges. I got to see this media room that you guys kept downplaying. And I'm like, this media room's kind of a nice pretty
space.
Nice, yeah.
It's a nice little space. You go in, they got all these tables you can sit at. They got coffee and tea.
They got tablecloths on the table. They have
these little pamphlets about I think just the general kind of what's happening in the local area and everything like that. It was donuts one day. There was bagels another day. It was a nice little media room. It was what I envisioned. So it was great kind of confirming what I thought it was going to be like.
No shade to the people that run PAX. When you see that hood ass media room, you go,
hey, who knows? Maybe they'll step their game up now. There's competition, fierce competition in media rooms.
It is mostly very regular tables, dead silence, and tension in the air, and
Yeah.
one like power strip that everyone's kind of sharing.
The GDC one also had like these like meeting cods.
Yeah, I didn't even know
almost
about
kinda
those
things.
until we saw like one of our friends come out of there, and I was
Yeah,
like,
it was pretty
oh,
cool.
interesting.
Where like if you have like a meeting at GDC, you can like book this room as a place to go, and it's quiet and a little isolated. You guys can talk and have conversations and whatnot. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool.
It definitely is cool. It was cool. It was pretty nice. The feeling of like you have your badge, you can kind of you got to go to also you went to Day of the Devs and ID at Xbox. We went together.
Yeah,
was it
also
like
as media?
Normally you're just kind of dropping me off at these places, and then but
yeah.
What was it like to like go through? I mean, Day of the Devs again. You've been to Day of the Devs because it's public. But
even this year,
go
again having
ahead.
the media pass, we were able to get there earlier for the media hour, and we were of course late because it was the day we came into the city and everything, so we were late getting there, but we still got in there during the media hour with our own little entrance and everything like that. It was really cool. The Day of the Devs is always great. It's always like a fun time to kind of walk around. I saw like a bunch of friends and old college like people I know from college, like old professors over at RIT, people I graduated with who are now in the industry and doing cool things. So that was always great. And then the ID at Xbox, also really cool. That's one I think is definitely more that, I'm used to just dropping you off at these things.
Yes.
Or like walking you to these things or seeing you and waving you off goodbye to these things. You go behind these closed doors and who knows what you do. This was cool to actually like be able to go in with you. Our friend Jeff, seeing him who, I've seen him and heard, talk to him through you and stuff like that about like everything, a lot of MLS stuff and everything like that. It was cool finally meeting him in person and putting a face to the name and everything like that. And then also like playing the games. It was also really cool because it's like the ID at Xbox event is a like quieter kind of more casual, private kind of like, here's some of the games. They're set up in stations.
Yeah.
If you see a controller, pick it up, have it. It's almost like if Day of the Devs was just like smaller,
really tiny,
more concentrated. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I'm trying to think if there's another. Every now and then, like people put on stuff like that. Like the Nintendo event that was last year, which I got to go through MinMax, was kind of like that. But it is a little bit unusual because a lot of times when you're previewing a game, it's more, it's the one game. So maybe there are multiple, but it's like, maybe there are open stations, but it's very much like this is your time to play. You have set times. You have all these like other sort of barriers around the thing. It'll be interesting to see you eventually see all the different kinds of events that exist and all that. But yeah, for stuff we played, anything that a couple things you want to shout out from either Day of the Devs or ID at Xbox. Day of the Devs, admittedly, we didn't like play a lot. I like touched the controller on like 2 or 3 games for like a few minutes. Yeah, it's a Day of the Devs ends up being a lot more of a social event. But yeah, so not too much I want to share from that for that reason. But ID at Xbox, a couple things stuck out to me, for sure. Like I like that Hella game that we played.
Yeah. The Hella, one of the 2 mouse games there, which it's not strange that there were 2 mouse games, but that was strange that they were also next to each other.
Yeah.
It was Hella is one, and then Winterboro was another. But Hella's cool. It's kind of like this like. Would you call it an open world?
I would call it an open world. I'm not sure how big the world is.
Yeah.
But it is an open
It's at least like open
world.
space.
Yeah.
You are kind of you play this mouse who's like the familiar of a witch who, is sick or is not able to do her witchingly duties. And so you kind of are out in the world acting on her behalf, doing things for her, like collecting resources to help build, brew potions for people in the village or, collect wood for the fire or something like that. Right. Like, there's various tasks. But you're this like small little mouse, and it's, they have support multiplayer up to, I think it was 3 or 4.
I think 4 total.
And so as a single player, I played single player, during the little test. It was that you could basically create these like, I'm not gonna say clones, but almost like snapshot, like
They're-
ghostly figures
I think
of
they're
yourself.
referred to as shadows.
Shadows, yeah, that's a good. So yeah, you can like create a shadow of yourself to help you with some of the environmental puzzles if you do not have other people playing with you. So for example, I had to get to like this hut. I don't know if you did the hut as well. Where in order to get in, I found this like plank of wood that I could use my backpack rope kind of thing to like pull open and then create a shadow, and the shadow stands there holding it open while the regular me then goes through the hole that was exposed.
The shadow also functions as a form of checkpointing as well, where you can so it has a use case even outside of if you had multiplayer, where it's like if you're climbing like a really tall tree, you could like make a little shadow on like one of the branches so that if you fall, you can like warp back to that spot. Which I thought was cool. Yeah, it looked really good.
Yeah.
Which was kind of wild. Just like how nice it looked for, this is I hate Xbox, so it's all like indie titles, which, plenty of indie titles can look really good or have a lot of funding or have like the whatever. So I don't want to totally stereotype, but I'm gonna stereotype a little bit. I'm just like, well, besides that this looks like so as good as it does. Yeah, and it's very explore, grapple hook kind of. You have like a frog backpack.
Yeah.
And the frog like inflates, and that's kind of like how you glide, and then the frog's tongue comes out, and that's like the rope that you go on. I thought it felt pretty good, but the developer did mention that they are fine-tuning how the swinging feels.
Yeah.
And I forget if they said this themselves, but basically it's kind of like a very like parsed down version of like the Spider-Man swing. It's not nearly like that good or wild. You're not doing tricks or anything like that, but it's got like that kind of vibe to it. I
would say it's closer to Spider-Man and Marvel Rivals for people who might have tried that, where it's not Insomniac Spider-Man swinging.
Yeah,
but it is Spider-Man swinging. Like it's like you get the sense, but the execution is different.
I will say too, like I'm looking at the trailer right now, and you can do some wild stuff in this game. Like you can, so when you have multiple people, you can like grapple on the other people.
Oh, that's
which is cool. And there's like stuff with like the animals where you can like latch on it. And there are like there are enemies. I don't think you're fighting in the game, but there are kind of enemy creatures, maybe like bigger animals like your prey or whatever that you have to like get away from. I didn't encounter that in my demo, but I was told that by the developer. But there's also like animals that can like be of aid to you. And like in one of the trailers, you're like almost like surfing on like you're like what do they call it? Where you're on the ski, like the water skiing.
Oh, like yeah.
It's like you're land skiing with like a rabbit at one point.
Yeah, I remember the guy there told us like, oh yeah, like the rabbits can almost act like a fast travel system or something like that, where it's like, oh, like maybe you help them and then they unlock a location you can fast travel to.
I also think the gameplay, it felt very similar to me to Unravel, which I forget. Have you played Unravel?
No. That's on my list of things I want to play.
I like it a lot. It's funny, like just like game to game. Unravel's like a cozy inside in a way, like because it's environmental puzzle solving in a essentially like a 2.5D space. Like there are 3D models, but the movement is they're not going further like in. Yeah, it's like it's a really cool game. And then if you do play that and like it, we can play Unravel 2 together because that one is a co-op game.
Oh, okay, cool.
Which would be fun. But the gameplay felt very similar, and even like the fidelity. I do think, I guess Unravel technically looks maybe a little nicer than this game, like stylistically, but they both are going for like that realism kind of vibe. But yeah, I was very impressed by this, especially for it just being literally never heard of this game before. It was just there, and I'm like, let's see what it does. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm excited to play more of it. You have a really high stamina bar in this game too. I was like, you can just glide for.
And I imagine you can maybe even upgrade it. Like, is he the guy I was speaking to said that like they're kind of reworking some of their ability tree mechanics as well. So like some of the stuff you collect in the demo that we played reference things that won't be in the final game, as far as just like, oh, and you've got enough flimflams to now unlock a new shim sham. And like it's like, oh, we're going to be reworking that. So sounds like there's room for even more,
Yeah, it was really cool. Other things you played there that you want to shout out?
The other mouse game, Winter Burrow. I actually didn't realize I had this on my Steam wish list for a while. What?
I'm laughing because I'm wondering if you're gonna, because you told me, you're like, oh yeah, this game sounds familiar. And I'm like, yeah, I wrote about it. You're like, I already read it on your website.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or saw it. Like, you work on you made Pens and Pixels, like the back end and the front end and all that. So
yeah, no, it's funny. So not only did I see it on Pen and Pixels, but then when I went to go finally like add it to my wish list, it was already on there. And so what it is it's a almost like a Don't Starve kind of game where you have at least in the demo that we played, you kind of have this like home base and you can venture out and collect resources, bring them back to your home base to like upgrade things that then make it so that you can venture out for longer or further and collect more resources. That kind of a loop. Except you're this little mouse in this like forest and potentially there's spiders or beetles or like all these other, like enemies you might have to kind of deal with or puzzles you might need to solve or, there was in the demo that we played, the kind of objective is that there's like a bridge, like a broken down bridge that you need to fix in order to like kind of progress. And to me, like those kind of mechanics are my jam. I love a good like game that's going to give me like systems and resources that I can kind of like really lean into and min-max around and play with and everything. So hopefully it's supposedly coming out like a late 2025. So I'll be looking out for that game and wanting to play more. I don't know. Did you played it?
I played it already,
earlier.
So I skipped it.
Yeah.
But I think it was literally the exact same demo. At some points, they have had the demo available on Steam too. I don't know if it's currently available on Steam. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I like the game a lot too. Cozy survival game. The art is really pretty as well. It looks very storybook-like, which is nice. Yeah, there is a demo. So chances are the demo that's on here is either the same or it's very close. So if you want to see what the vibes are. But yeah, it's like, it is just an adorable, really charming game where you like knit a sweater and then it's like, oh, now you can stay out longer in the cold. So yeah, it's just it's very charming. I like it a lot. Very into that one.
And I'm someone who found Don't Starve as like almost
hard.
Too difficult. Yeah.
I think we played it together and we didn't get very far.
No, not at all. I think Winterboro is, at least from the demo that we played, seems a little bit easier, or at least the onboarding is simpler and less steep. I feel like, man, Don't Starve, you got like you got one in-game day. If you are not on it that like first day, I feel like you're fucked.
What's also wild about this game
and this is different.
Did your demo start with like the narrative setup?
A little bit, yeah. The
narrative is actually like kind of really good. I feel like.
I was like, oh, okay.
Where it's like you're this city, like your parents moved. It's like an immigrant story, basically, about like advice. So your parents moved to the city, but they originally lived in this borough in the woods. But they went to the city to like get rid of the stress of the wilderness, only to find the stress of capitalism tearing them down as they worked in the mines until they died. And it was the only job they could get, the job in the mines, and they died before they could go to afford to go back home again. So you're like going back home, and I'm like, oh my god, this is really good. Like.
Yeah,
I thought it was really cool. Which I also, what I liked about that is it felt like a very different take on what you normally get in games that have to do with, increasing your survival ability or, improving your base, which a lot of times those games are, like the Stardew formula of like, oh my gosh, you were so sick of your like life and now you're going to have fun, la la la. And now it's like, I'm returning to the place my ancestors forged. Like, I don't know. Again, I don't think it's going to be a big part of the story, but to me, it says that there's gonna be more than just like, and now you saw this person, yay, and just has like a little bit more meat to it, which I think is cool. I'm excited about this game.
Yeah.
Any other shots you want to do before we talk about GDC proper?
I think one of the bigger ones, the Claire Obscura. Expedition 33.
Claire Obscura. I keep saying Claire Obscura, but it's
It's
Claire
not
Obscura.
Oh my god.
No, I don't think so. It's spelled OPS.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Obscura, but I keep saying Claire Obscura. It's Claire Obscura.
Claire Obscura. Man,
you could just say Expedition 33 also, or if you want to be funky,
CO.
COD. I'm doing like COD E33 or something. Wait,
COE.
Yeah, Claire. I'll figure it out.
Claire Obscura.
Oh, COE 33 is what I've also been calling it.
That's just as many syllables. This is not easier. We need a.
You down with COE? Yeah, you know me. Expedition 33.
Claire Obscure Expedition 33. Also had that demo there. We played a little bit of that. That one we did share. We kind of did a pass the controller kind of thing. Just because the demo they have is like it's
4
really
hours long.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's too
long.
long.
It only had 2 stations. It's like, well, if someone's going ham on one, you better hope the other person.
Are just like, I'm going to play all the get my coverage is going to be so thorough, and I'm like, okay, relax. Like, I don't know. I got other games to play.
But play that game. I'm super into it. I love a good. It is a turn-based system. Turn-based kind of like action. RPG kind of system.
New metaphor Fantasia.
Yeah, it's definitely got like.
And its
definitely
name's also bad.
Yeah,
Claire Obscure.
Really, metaphor easier to pronounce. We tried that. I'm curious, what did you think of it? How'd you feel?
I liked it a lot. For me, this is a successful demo in the sense that I went in interested in the game and I left slightly more interested in the game. So I feel like it's a win for the team. I thought it was really good, really stylish. My only concerns are the telegraphing is really quick on like enemy attacks and not that parsable to me. And when you do your attack, everything's like it's turn-based, but there's real-time elements in terms of landing like a perfect attack, which, you know, you've seen stuff like the Mario and Luigi games. And as Jill Grote pointed out to me, Sea of Stars also has a timing thing to it. I haven't played Sea of Stars, so I didn't know that. But yeah, it has that element. But the UI for that is in different spots on the screen at all times. And I find that really disorienting. So I do think there's moments where I feel like it is very stylish, but I'm like, I don't know what's happening. My eyes are bleeding. I don't know what's going on. But I think you might get used to that. And there's also audio cues that are the same. Like you point out to me that the audio cue is always the same.
Like the timing for the reactions are always the same.
Yeah.
Even if the UI
is moving around. So, and also with the enemy stuff, I feel like, you know, it's an RPG. Probably gonna fight these enemies a million times. Maybe you just kind of get to know, oh, this enemy's like this.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I feel like even the con might kind of go away as I play more of it. And they are still like, you know, they're not done with it. You're not done till you like, you know, press it as like a disc and everything. Was it going gold or that? Yeah, you can patch and stuff, but you know, you're probably not gonna. I mean, maybe some people do make larger adjustments to like bigger gameplay elements, but those are my only like concerns about the game. Everything else was super cool. Yeah. What about you?
Pretty much the same. Love the kind of like art style and vibe that they're going for. They have outfits, which is always nice. I know like we found that there's these like flowery outfits that we could put the characters in, and it was like, all right, yeah, cool, little tuxedo man.
You can switch who's walking, so now I'm like, there's like
really cool. Yeah.
Immediately there's this guy that you get, and there's this girl companion you get. Your party's gonna be bigger than that, like as per the gamed art, like you know. But the guy runs like it's the most important day of his life, and the girl just glides, and I'm like, I'm gonna be a pretty princess, really so cool. I'm just like gonna glide around. It seems really cool. When does this come out again?
I want to.
Do we know the date
say
yet?
Next month.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Like the 17th
I have
or something
to
like
be
that?
Persona 5 before this game comes out. The 24th.
Okay, all right. So not as bad as I thought. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I just think I just live with Persona 5 now, and I just need to start playing other RPGs because I can't keep waiting to play RPGs until this game is done. Cool.
Game looks good. I definitely am excited to play more once it's out. Well, I've looked at my notes and 2 things. One, I put Metal Arm, cool, which the main guy character that you play has like a metal arm, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. It looks cool. He's doing all magic with it and everything like that. Second thing was a question which I regret not asking to get clarification on is in the game, the concept is that like every year the people who are whatever age, they like disappear or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a Thanos snap for like certain ages.
Yeah, and every year it kind of like counts down, and you know, people younger and younger are kind of getting Thanos snapped. My question that I really wanted to get answered is like, well, what happens on your birthday? Like, if the people who are 33 or who are 34 just got snapped, and I'm 33 on my birthday, do I like just wake up snap? Like what happens there? I want to know a lore question. I hope they get into it in the game.
Yeah, I think
it's a very interesting concept.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got some good lore.
Yeah, we got dead wife guy, you know.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff
of,
to it.
Is he a dead wife guy? Or is he
his
just giving
wife got
dead wife?
snapped.
Okay.
Or,
yeah. Or his partner or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote dead wife guy was like one of my first notes. Everyone's hot was another note I put. I actually don't have my notes in front of me, but I remember what I wrote down like pretty well. I think my only other nod that I really want to give is Detective Dotson. I thought was super cool. It's in that vein of like, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting. Not Duck Detective.
Not Duck Detective.
Well, actually, no, Duck Detective is kind of what I'm thinking of. Well, not that. Maybe.
It's like if Duck Detective was more of a 2D side scroller.
Yeah, it's like a bit of that deduction element, but more mini games, and also like the part that we played was very trade oriented. Like get a kite to give the kid, and the kid gives you intel, and then like that kind of thing. Really cool art style too. It's like a is it voxely or like it's like an HD pixel?
Yeah,
kind of like it looks really like packed visually, but it is still like pixel graphics. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, but I know you played Dotson as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I played a little bit of it too.
How you felt about it?
It is, I think one of the, it is very, like you said, mini game almost heavy. But those mini games to me, I thought were actually pretty cool. Like there's basically like an I Spy kind of mini game that I was like, oh, I'm with this. Like I
love the I Spy one.
Given the like kind of in-game environment, it kind of like zooms out and you can scroll left and right. And like up and down and like kind of like see more than just like one screen worth, and you have like this list of items that you're trying to find. And it's like, all right, it's basic, it's simple, but honestly, it hits. You know,
yeah.
Give me a good I Spy. I'm with it.
Yeah, and it's set in modern day India. Just to give,
which I believe the whole team is in India, and they're like kind of developing to kind of like showcase like, hey, like you know, there's developers here too. You know, I love a good you know foreign immigrant story, whatever you want to call it, right? And it's like. Great. Yeah, no, that's true. I'm sure like there's actually probably a whole larger gaming community over.
Yeah, and like one of the things the guy had said was like you don't really see Indians in games very often, which I would agree with that. And it's just like having it be, you know, the setting, the culture, but also like just a cool detective game, which I feel like that, I mean, I think there's room for both, right? Like there's stories that are POC stories that are like about being a person of color, but then there's also like the stories where it's like you just happen to be a person of color, and it's like that's just kind of that's treated the same as everything else, which I think is cool. So yeah, that was an interesting detail as well. But yeah, I'm enjoying seeing this kind of wave of chill deduction games. Yeah, you know, I'm like a nice little hint system in there. I'm like, don't gotta do too much. Yeah, I think those are all my main game shouts. I mean, there were other things there, but I didn't have time to get to everything, and then other stuff I'm sure will come up later. Like I did Promise Mascot Agency. It was fun. We'll see how it goes, kind of thing. Yeah, but we went to GDC. We primarily went to talks. That was like the bulk of our time. But you know, in between that, of course, you know, we saw a bunch of friends in the industry. We went to the Min-Max meetup again, the annual GDC Min-Max meetup at the Tempest Bar, which was fun as always. We also went to Blackfest, which was like a tangential event happening like near GDC, you know, in the vein of there's a bunch of events happening around GDC, like the Mix and all these other like ones. That one was like a all day event with like their own like smaller talks, and then also just like meeting people in the industry, eating snacks, hanging out, sharing content. We were only there for like a little bit, but it was funny because you ran into somebody you said you went to school with, right?
Yeah.
These RIT people are
we're everywhere. We're in games.
I said this like so many times to people throughout the week, but I'll say it again on the podcast. Genuinely, and this is not sponsored by RIT or anything, but RIT, like I will take your money, I guess. This is like the only time I have really felt, and maybe this is true for just other bigger schools. I went to a very tiny college. But like when I toured colleges, they were always like, you'll have this lifelong network of people. And like, whatever. Like, I feel like that's kind of just like a marketing plug. Like, yeah, there's a lot of graduates because you're a big school, but who cares? Genuinely, I'm always seeing RIT people. Like, they're everywhere. So I thought it was funny that.
Go Tigers.
Like, when you like saw like that guy or like he recognized you first, I was like, oh my God, Isaiah. And I said, oh, is he from RIT? And you said yes. I was like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God. Give me RIT. Give me my honorary degree because I feel like I went to RIT at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean it definitely is obviously like a, you know, contextual thing, right? Like RIT has a big game developer degree course, so a lot of RIT graduates end up in the industry working on games, showing games. RIT themselves come here. We have the Magic Center, which is like kind of like a in college incubator kind of thing where the professors and everyone are working on games and helping showcase like what RIT does and everything like that. So like
I'm gonna hit that RIT store so hard. I'm gonna be dripped out in RIT merch.
Oh, we should definitely go.
Yeah, I know you said you've been wanting us to go.
Yeah.
How far is it from like where you stay at in Buffalo? Is it like
an hour?
Okay, maybe we can go later in the year when we go to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Inevitably again.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
Yeah. You said it's a pretty cool campus. So, what kind of talks did you like look for? We kind of went through the list together. And we went to some talks together, but I think most of the talks we actually went to a lot like separately.
Split, yeah.
What kind of talks were you looking for, and like why?
Yeah. So for me, one of my bigger goals is just being on the more developer end. The development of a game is something that is, well, obviously very challenging and everything like that. It's like within my wheelhouse. So like, more of the talks that I was interested in are the things that I don't have much experience in, which is like marketing and the business side of things and advertising and like finding influencers or platforms to work with and help promote the game and things like that. So a lot of my talks are more like the community management track or advertising track or / like marketing, kind of like all the non-technical elements of game development. Right. There were a couple cool ones about like how to use Discord for like building your gaming community and don't forget about like web games. Like that's a whole platform revenue that you could go down. That's like 10%, according to them, about 10% of the market of gaming is like still like web, like think like Flash games, right? Like Newgrounds and things like that. And it's like, yeah, like those are still, legit games that people are working on. They're making content for, fans love them and stuff like that. And just general things like that, right? Like, markets and trailers and how to be a part of, how do you approach a Steam community event kind of thing, right? Like one of the like Next Fest or stuff like that. So those are kind of the talks that I gravitated towards. What about you?
I was largely looking for some social media as well. I do a lot of social media, like promoting my own work, hopefully promoting the Gangcast more as I carve out a little bit more time to do that stuff, but also like doing the like PP Bang's social media, which is like a podcast that we recently spun out like through MinMax. For people that don't know, because I don't think I've talked about that pod on the show. I don't even know if we were doing the pod last time we recorded, but we've only done a couple episodes of it. So yeah, that I technically run Indie Council socials too, which I have to update those also. But so it's a lot. I do a lot of stuff on social, and I imagine with my writing background, I will be helping you at least to a degree when you eventually like start working on marketing stuff for your game as well. So I'm like, okay, always a good skill to have. So I go to those talks, and I gravitate towards stuff that is about video game narrative design and audio design. In part because those are the things I'm most interested in games. And then also when we did our game jam, I was like the narrative designer of the game jam.
Were.
So and I'd like to do more jams and stuff like that. I at this point do not see myself having like a future in games, like in the making of games, but life is long. And I think it's also fun to maybe have that. I feel like game development is like one of the most disturbing hobbies you can have with how hard it is to make a game, but you can just chip away at it casually. Like who cares? Like if it's really just for fun, who cares? Right. Like it's just about like exploring and doing stuff. So, but it's also, those are the elements of video games that I am there's some of the ones I'm most drawn to in terms of discussing and unpacking games. So those are the talks I gravitate towards, and those are primarily what I went to. I'll also go to stuff if it's just like an interesting angle on a game that I like, or just an interesting angle on a game in general. So I of course went to like 3 Astrobot talks because I was like, I was originally only gonna go to 2, and then I was like, you know what? I do want to hear more about your physics system, even though I'm like, I know I'm not going to understand what you're talking about. So why am I going to go to this talk? But I'm like, fuck it. Or other examples of that. I'm trying to think if there's another kind of, Metaphor Fantagio had like its battle system. And I'm like, that's cool. So those are like not narrative or audio, but they're interesting things. And they're, you know, obviously GDC, it's going to be very specific kinds of talks. So there's not usually... There is like the making of Astrobot, but that's kind of a rarity. It's more so like something very specific about the game, like how we brought this to life using, you know, this special tool, or how we made our own tool to do this thing. So, you know, like that's why you're not really going to get just how Yoshi was really fun and yay, like it's going to be like something specific about like the thing that's being made. Of the talks you went to, what are some that you want to share and unpack a little bit? We both took notes. How many talks did you go to total? Also, I think we had matching. Totals. I went to 17.
I think we matched. If not exactly, then you know within one or two of you for sure. Because I think pretty much anytime you were in a talk, I was in a talk.
Yeah,
and
pretty
vice
much.
versa. So, probably the same 17. There were some duds for sure, and also some like really banger talks. Like I think one of the better talks, even if it wasn't necessarily something that was for like that I was there for, was one that we went together, which is the guy at Yarn Spinner talking about how Dredge, the developers of Dredge, like use their tool to like manage the branching narrative web that they put in Dredge. And like, you know, again, I'm not a narrative person. I'm not writing narrative. That is a you kind of interest for sure. But hearing about like the tool that they used and like how they were able to solve like things like conditional branching and like these like narrative beats where it's like, oh, if you've done this, then we want to offer this narrative option. If you picked up this item or if it's in your inventory, then you can do this. Like, and you know, how they manage that was very interesting. And it's like good to know, right? You know, that it's a tool that is now in my tool belt that I can reach for our next game jam, you know?
I'm gonna look into it. I'm scared at how
more.
They said it's very simple, but it's like we'll see. I had a tool one of our friends, Danny, who works at Heart Machine, mentioned to me was she's using Artisy Draft for narrative stuff right now on her own, like not like on Heart Machine stuff, but just like her own stuff. So the Yarn Spinner one was definitely interesting too. One thing I want to shout out from that talk, and I would like to eventually publish a couple articles or thoughts on GDC. I'm working on one right now. We'll see how it goes. It's hard to like, writing stuff is really hard. And especially when I'm trying to like synthesize, like combine it with like source material where it's okay, well, let me make sure I like say this right. And then like, how do I do this what's the best way to like attribute, like, these aren't my idea, you know, like trying to, but then it's not direct quotes because they're kind of like slides and they're also just like, I'm trying to figure out how to make some stuff. So, but from the Dredge talk, one of the most interesting things that I got from it as just like a quick thing was there was a slide that said guidelines for successful dialogue. And said no more than 4 or 5 text boxes in a row, each box 3 to 4 lines long. And then this is maybe more specific to Dredge. All text should do at least 2 of these things. 1, tell the player what they're doing. 2, advance the story. Or 3, be creepy. The creepy thing is specific to Dredge.
Yeah.
But I found that so illuminating because, like, I just started like literally freaking Jimmy Neutron brain blasting through all the games where I'm like, that's the shit that be pissing me off. I'm like, that's what, because there are games, like I love story in games, but there are some games where it's just like blah, 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 blah. And when you have too much stuff to choose from, nothing looks appetizing anymore. And it makes it so that like, I don't want to actually, like I love exhausting dialogue options in games, but when there's like too much, everyone has like 32 things to say and it's like that's all I'm doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like it really messes the pace. And then let alone when stuff gets like backlogged, it's like this character's like backed up on content to tell me, and I'm just like, they're like, ask me about anything, and I'm just like talking this fucking life story at this like camp and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so real. So yeah, I thought that was also just like, it was really interesting seeing the sort of thought process also in like constructing it and all of that. Other ones you want to shout out?
There was one that I I can't say that I took too much away from as well. At least not for like where I am currently in like my game dev kind of track and everything. But there was a talk by, was it Wout, right?
Yeah.
For Balatro and like how
I like that one a lot too.
Sort of like, how do you market a game like Balatro where the fun, what makes the game enticing is not necessarily easy to show in a single screen. It is more like playing it and experiencing it. And there were a lot of just like great nuggets in that talk about like, hey, maybe reach out to like one of the and not just from this talk, but from a couple talks, one of the sort of like key pieces of information that I got is that like definitely reach out to like influencers if you want to help like market a game, but don't necessarily, it is better to find influencers who are a better fit than just bigger influencers.
Yeah.
And that is something that in retrospect is like, oh yeah, no, that totally makes sense. But it wasn't until I heard it and then saw why that is the case based off of like their experiences and like their history with the, you know, different paths and things. It's like, oh yeah, no, it is better to like have a handful of, you know, people that you work with who like really love the game. It's really in their niche and, you know, they are gonna like fight for it really strongly than to like just get some big streamer to play it for like 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Like you'll build a community much better by finding someone who's like a better fit for you and your game. And just that was really interesting, you know. Yeah, there was another talk about like that I took from where this guy made a game. I don't didn't write down all the notes because some of these talks are really fast, but this guy made a game, and during the development of the game he gave it away for free. And it wasn't until, you know, like 1 or 2 months before the final release of the game that like that version that he's been developing became kind of like the classic version, and then almost like a Minecraft kind of thing. Then the real version dropped, and that's the one that he sold that had all the full content and, you know, bug fixes and everything that they kind of like built towards. So there's just a couple different ways to approach game development, marketing, promotion, things like that. They were really good talks.
Yeah. From the I was gonna say the local thing one. That's the developer. This was Wout, who's like, I did not make Balatro. I just marketed it.
So he says.
Yeah, I know the ultimate ploy. The importance of like demos and different types of demos for different reasons, and like pulling the demo at strategic time. Because like I guess from my ignorant perspective, I'm like, why not just have like your demo there all the time? Like, I don't know if people can try the game, but it's like, you know, really kind of playing with that like demand and like timing, and then how they like how also they gamed the Next Fest system by having like, this isn't a Next Fest game, but which I've noticed a couple like developers and studios doing that, where we were talking about that when we unpacked Next Fest on Indie Council, where it's like some people will like send you something during Next Fest, and then you're like, wait, this isn't a Next Fest demo, and they're like, oh, like whatever. You still played it, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, that stuff was interesting, but yeah, it was very cool. For me, I feel like there's so many things that were really interesting. I guess I will give a nod to, I think this might have been the first talk I went to, Storytelling Through Systems, a narrative designer's approach by Adam Dolan, who I believe is like freelance, but worked on things like God of War. I forget if it was, I think 2018 specifically, even though they didn't talk that much about that because they're like, I do not sue me. But they're just talking about like what the role of a narrative designer even is, and they're like, it's what the studio says it is, like, to be honest. But just like the way gameplay and systems work together. And one reason I go to these talks as well, which I kind of alluded to before, is I want better and more specific language for discussing games. Like that's kind of, you know, one of the cores of the job that I do. Even just when we're here, I know it's kind of like, I mentioned, we had this conversation before we recorded where I'm like, oh yeah, I count this as work. You're like, oh, this is work? I was like, yeah, it's like, I think of it as work. But anyway, just being able to have stuff that is more specific than this was fun, you know, which I feel like I'm already at that point for sure, but you can always work on it, and unpacking things, especially like one of the big challenges of talking about games and writing about games is how can I make you understand not just what it is, but like what it feels like when you're not feeling it. You like don't see it. You're just reading words or you're hearing me talk about it. And like one thing that was pointed out, again, this is not groundbreaking, but like this guy spent a good amount of his talk talking about mental models and the ways that, you know, playing into those mental models like makes sense, but then also subverting them. So things like, you know, mimic chess versus like regular chess and like how interesting that can be. And also one thing I really liked from a lot of these talks is, which I need to pull this out as a separate list, there was like some fun additional sources. Like I really like when talks gave you additional resources to explore the topics. And like one of his was, I don't know if you've read this book yet, The Design of Everyday Things.
I know of it. It's got like a little teapot.
Yeah.
I think on the cover. Yeah. I think I might even own a digital, like it might have been something I got on like Audible or something like that.
Yeah. So that was like, you know, part of his talk, and then talking about just like aligning gameplay and narrative. Of course, Celeste being like one of the good examples of doing this, and then, you know, trying to write for Atreus in a way that feels useful in the context of playing the game, but also makes sense for showing like the relationship developing and the ebbs and flows like between like Kratos and Atreus and things like that. The importance of conditional logic, which luckily I did already know a little bit about conditional logic from taking comp sci in high school. So it's like, cool, like you don't have to know too. And he's like, don't be afraid. I know we write because we don't want numbers and thoughts, but it's okay. And then like he kind of just, you know, showed some examples, and like it was nice seeing him also like show his own failings in his own work, like how he's like, oh, there was like this horrible like YouTube compilation of like whack parts of God of War, and one of them was I guess like in certain contexts a bark can like go infinitely with Atreus. Like there's a lot of Draugr here, there's so many Draugrs, da, 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 da. And he was like, oh my god, he's like, it was so humiliating, like it's like, and now I know to put a cooldown. And then he's like, but you know who like didn't put a cooldown, no shade to the game, I love this game, Rebirth was actually the example. He's where it's like every time you change characters, they're always talking constantly, which I have to imagine at that point probably was a stylistic choice on the audio designer, narrative, the team side. I think they like having that, but I'm like, oh yeah, it is kind of nonstop, like wild in that game. So yeah, like that was cool. There was a really fun one that I don't even think I talked to you about at all, even off like content. But it was called Sex or Death: Achieving Satisfying Midpoints in Interactive Narratives. Were you there for that?
I think that might have been one I came too late. Like it might have
at one point they used Futurama as an example. So
yeah,
okay, you were there then.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The talk is kind of what it sounds like. It's like, where can you find entry points and exit ramps for your game? And the importance of like keeping people coming back, but like having a game that you can put down and come back to, like almost like a TV show. And how you might, you know, construct those arcs and, you know, breaking those pieces apart. I didn't have like massive notes on this, but it was just kind of an interesting way to think about pacing. And again, what I do with like critical analysis is always inherently subjective because it is my opinion, but I think a lot of these talks help compartmentalize and add labels and rationale to like, why do I feel the way about certain games and things? I'm like, oh yeah, like I feel like nothing happens. Okay, why do I feel nothing happens? Like what is actually happening and what could be marked as these highs and lows, and kind of like tracking narrative in that way, which is, you know, I've used to doing that from a literary perspective, but it's also been like a long time since I've done that with like literature in like a formal setting. So yeah, that one was cool. Any other ones you want to shout out?
I kind of mentioned it earlier, but there was one talk where, oh man, where is it? Where are my notes on it? The online festivals. Derek Liu and Dana.
I was so jealous that you got to go to that. There was so many that were like good talks at the same time, and you just had to pick a favorite.
Yeah.
But if I could split myself in half, I would have been at that talk.
It was a really good talk about Derek Liu, who's, you know, I'd say pretty well known in the at least gaming community for as like a trailer editor. He's worked on trailers for a bunch of different games. You can look him up for sure. But him and Dana went over kind of like when and how to best show your game off at these online festivals, and online festival can be something like a Next Fest. It could also be something like a showcase that's happening, right? Whether it's like the Game Awards showcase or the Cozy Games or any like, of the many one of the things they wanted to sort of emphasize is that there are so many showcases that you can always have something to like kind of use to promote your game, and just like how to go about choosing, sort of applying for these showcases, how to increase your chances of being chosen to be in it, some of the sort of like tips to get in one, like, generally you want to offer something exclusive if you can, some new information is better than just the same information, and timelines for how to like work backwards from the day of the showcase to like know when you need to have things done by, and kind of like all these different just like patterns and approaches to doing things that make sense, but you would only know it from doing it, kind of thing. So they really did give people like me who have never done something like this just a little bit more insight into like things to be aware of, also external resources, the Dana, I think specifically gameconfguide.com, which has like a calendar for a bunch of these like online festivals and things that you can apply to and be a part of, as well as just like other like, again, external resources, checkbox lists to kind of like keep yourself in tune with things, and make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's, and really, really fantastic talk. One of the best one. It was like a very early one. It was like an early Monday too. So I was like, man, this week is starting off heavy.
Yeah. That's really cool. And it's also wild how much, and every field goes through this, like every job is more than just like what the job is.
Yes.
Where it's like, I'm here to
much.
give, like at the core, like what I do is I give my critical analysis of games. That is what I do. The ways I do that, and then the work that goes into all of that is so much stuff. I'm like, I don't want to do all that, where it's like, the thumbnail designs and the whatever and the promotion and the, and then like just tracking calendars and things like that. It's just interesting how like like the more I think about it, the more game dev, and obviously some of this stuff, like anything in life, you can also offload some of this if you like, but at a certain point you do have to, like, you cannot literally just be in a lab cooking, even if you work with a team, because I think a lot of these talks too got into the importance and the value of like cross-disciplinary work, whether it's like within a development team of like the narrative designer being in the loop with the gameplay designer to help each reinforce each other, or whether it's, we went to that talk from, I forget the name of it, but it was the talk that, actually, maybe you and I didn't go. Maybe I went with Sarah or something. It was the aggro crap talk on like how they did the marketing. Were you there for that? Okay. Maybe I forget like who's next to me in the chairs at this point. But them talking about having how do I explain this? Like in the development tools, there's like, they have their own tools that they can use to like go into the game and do things in the game to like get content, to like just streamline, not having to like ask the developers to like take time to like make certain clips or whatever. But that came from like the front work of them having those conversations. And there are things that they did collaborate with like the people like programming the game to make like certain pieces of content. So yeah, there really is like, you have to do a little more than just make the game, which making a game is hard. It's not like that's not enough work, but it's like, guess what, you have more work. You have work on top of that. Which is wild. Gosh, for my last shout, there's so many things I want to talk about here. I don't know. I guess I want to give a nod to, honestly, I guess one of the things I was most drawn to, but it's not like that much to talk about for it because it was more visual, but the from Persona to Metaphor Fantasia, creating a visual identity for a new series, Koji Isai was the person that, worked on this. They first joined Atlas in 2018. They have a background in web design, and this was their first shipped game, which I think
is insane.
That blows my mind. And just seeing like their art process and the way they talked a lot about like the rationale for certain design choices, again, tied into like the narrative. One of their big things was making stuff feel like it could only be in Metaphor or Fantasio, like it wouldn't make sense in other games. So that's a lot of like integrating the imagery of the king like watching over you and like kind of bringing that through, having lines and points that kind of have an emotional flow to them. And like, you know, when you look at the main menu with like the protagonist laying down, it's like the text is by his head, like the thoughts are like shooting out of his head, kind of thing. So it's like, oh, it's the typography is like the manifestation of his ideas, and just like a lot of nerdy stuff like that. Yeah, they just had some good breakdowns of what made the imagery work and make sense, and also just like some cool shots of them looking for visual consistency and trying to create visual consistency throughout the game. So they did this by like having the UI and aspects of the UI, like they printed out pieces of paper, and it was like some of the stuff was like the UI, and some of the stuff was cutscenes and things from the game, and they like laid them all out next to each other, and it's like, does this feel like that goes together? And they'd have people walk in and be like, "What do you think? Like, is really the cool vibe going together?"
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool. And again, all the Astrobot stuff was like insane. Yeah. Like just seeing I know you were there for you were there for the ideation talk, which was like how they do prototyping, and then I also did the making of Astrobot and the physics one. And yeah, so I'm cheating and doing one extra one. The Astrobot one there was so much that went into the Astrobot one, because I think literally Nicholas, the studio head and game director of Team Asobi, went over 10 topics, and then there was a bonus 11th topic because he structured it like the game where it's like there's the universes, and then he's like, but there's one extra, and everyone's like, oh my god, you know, and we all cheered for him. That actually kind of is what happened. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, wow, you're so clever.
One more thing.
Like, oh my gosh, he's designing his PowerPoint, like, you know, which I can't even imagine the work that went into these fucking PowerPoints, especially the ones that were like, you can tell are done by like something Team Asobi, like that ran through PlayStation hands. You know what I mean? It's not just like, no offense to other people's presentations, but it's like, oh, I'm freelance, I'm kind of just doing my own thing, let me not get sued. This is like people, and not to mention they all had like a bunch of people on the team had talks. So they probably all got together, and then like, oh my god, I don't even want to think about the drama of the PowerPoint. But yeah, it had some just really cool stuff on the prototyping, and there were like amazing things on like tempo of the gameplay. And again, I'm like, this is like the ideological tea that I was looking for. I'm like, yeah, like why does Astrobot feel so good? I've spent a lot of time thinking and writing about how do I convey like what is good here and why it's so good. And this is something that I like didn't even like think about. And I was like, damn, that's so true. So basically tempo and gameplay it has to do with like the enemy placement in context of the level design. So it's stuff like you have an enemy and you like punch with square, and then another enemy and you punch with square, and then you're going to jump, and then you're going to jump with a hover to go over this other enemy who's placed by this gap. And then when you do that, there's two other enemies. You're going to punch, then there's a bot in a tree. So then you jump and punch, and it's like this like good flow feeling and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, like that's one of the words I was looking for of stuff. So I really liked stuff like that. And then also just, I guess, seeing more of their design ethos on what they make and why they make it. I think there was some really cool insight, like something I want to write about. Just no one steal my idea for what I want to write about. But and it'll be probably pretty short. But like one thing I got out of the talk was, in my mind, kind of the future of Astrobot a little bit. Because one thing that a couple things. One, I feel like they're never really gonna maybe be as cohesive as I'd like them to be as a player, because they really like that, like being able to swap levels around, because they're kind of all independent and getting to hot swap like universes and stuff. But one thing that he mentioned for challenges was they said he says the team has a hard time making basically like worlds that are like more open levels. That's like the team's kind of one of their bigger challenges that quote, we really want to practice and improve on in the future. So I could see them in like an example of an open level is like that water one is an open level. It'd be just like sometimes like it'd be kind of confusing in them open levels. Like one of us getting lost and shit. You know, it's like, how do we make it where it's like the flow is there in the same way and all of that. And I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, a bunch of cool nuggets from those talks. Yeah, like this is such a nerdy thing, but I feel like these talks, especially like getting insight into how some of these games are made, it's like imagine, and I don't know for how long GDC's been going for, but like imagine if we could really get to know like what made Super Mario 64 tick, you know? And like it's just really cool. Like I think these things are really interesting. I cheated with one extra one, so you're welcome to close with any other
other
talks. Oh, there's a bunch of other ones I liked as well. I
think
we could spend hours reading our notes off on these talks.
This is definitely one of the times, having gone to GDC, where after GDC I am waiting for that vault to open. Like with our badges, we get vault access, and I'm like, there's talks you went to that I couldn't go to. There's talks I went to that you couldn't go to. And like, there are talks that just neither of us could go to because, we went to other ones. Like, there's so many talks that we, I think, slipped through the cracks or just could not make. And I am eagerly awaiting catching those talks, because if they're anything like the ones we did catch, then I'm like, oh yeah, these are going to eat.
We were tired.
We were very tired. I was constantly like, shout out to the free coffee that they were offering.
It would appear sometimes in the Moscone Center
randomly in Moscone West on like floors 2 and 3. They just randomly bust out the coffee cart, and I'm like, great, perfect. I needed this. Didn't do too much for me, but
I'm not trying to expose you too bad, but I will say, and I was tired too. It's not like I wasn't tired. But there was one day specifically where you were so tired. I was like, we got to take, like, I felt like a coach being like, I got to walk up that pitcher's mound and I'm taking this ball and I do not care.
No, I was falling asleep.
When you drank the energy drink and you were so like, I was like, this. At a certain point, you need to lay down. Like, that's the thing. Like, this is time.
Yeah.
Which I think for GC, I definitely would love to be closer, like more walking distance to the Moscone, because we were further out. We stayed over by Fisherman's Wharf. So we just kind of got on the bus. Shout out to finally getting our Clipper cards. To transfer over.
The Apple Wallet.
I had $60 left from pre-pandemic days.
$60.
And I was like, let's go. So I got that. Unfortunately, I didn't like queue in until like Thursday. Like whatever, but it queued in at some point. So that was nice.
For next time.
I think I'm trying to think if there's other things I want to shout out or whatever, but yeah, it was really cool. I would, no shade to other stuff. And, again, the core, I'm looking to like play games, cover games. But I feel like moving forward, just being realistic, I'd love to do like GC, Dream World, like every year, and like PAX, like one PAX every year. Or like, I'd be more down to miss PAX than I think miss GDC low key, because I feel like with GDC, I mean, there's always good games, so it's like weird to say like, oh, there's always good talks and there's not always good games, but the talks are just like, they're just so good. And it's like, it's just such a different vibe from PAX, because PAX, it's like, boom, appointment, going around the floor, playing. It's very like game intensive, and like you're taking notes, which for some people GDC is that. But the way we do GDC, it's like I'm sitting, I have my iPad with the keyboard.
Yeah.
I'm studious, I'm learning. And I like that a lot. It's just great to have like, it really does feel like what people can get from like a sabbatical kind of vibe, where it's like, I'm not doing my traditional work. Instead, I'm enriching my mind.
Yeah.
I'm doing research.
Yeah. Betterment time.
I'm learning. I'm improving. It's like for real professional development, which is cool. Yeah. And like, shout out to just like people at GDC. Like, I met that one guy, I think his name's Eric, the audio designer. Eric, if you're listening to this, hopefully I got your name correctly. I have you on LinkedIn. Like, he was super cool. Like, we were in line for the same talk, and we just kind of started talking. Then we realized, hey, we're going to a lot of audio stuff together. Let's like go to like 2 more talks together.
Talk buddy.
Yeah, I had like a little talk friend, and then he went off to do like whatever he had going, more talks or whatever. I went to eat lunch, and it's like, yeah, good luck. And it's like, I don't know. That's also a nice thing about GDC. Obviously, if you're more looking for like specific work or something, you're going to be hustling that thing like hard as hell, and nothing wrong with that. But it's like, even just being casually there, like people are really friendly. And like, I don't know. That's been my experience. I know sometimes people don't always have great experiences like networking with people.
Sure.
Like, a lot of people have complained about like hierarchy stuff, or people being judgy and being like, what's your bet? Who are you? Who do you work for or whatever? And I'm sure stuff happens and that sucks. I've been very lucky in that, like, I feel like I've only gotten good, or I don't have the sociological intelligence to know when someone doesn't give a fuck, and then they're just like ignoring me. But I'm like, I don't know. I don't care about that stuff. But yeah, so that was cool. Just getting to meet other people who are like, this is why I'm here to learn. I'm like, I'm here to learn for this. They're like, that's cool. And it's like, I think that's really cool. Yeah. Oh, and also shout out to my colleague Sarah Prozorski for doing her talk at GC, which we went to.
Yeah, I found out about was it?
And I know I'm biased, but I did think it was good. Like, genuine,
Yeah, no, it was a great talk.
Yeah, she mentioned Selenome. A couple people, someone else on like a different talk mentioned Selenome as well, but hers was like a panel on it was called like Hitting the Bullseye. Yeah, crafting a winning strategy for targeting creators in press. Yeah, and just like some good casual nuggets there. I think the moderator did a good job being like, boom, topic, everyone goes. And then, you can tell that they really like, I mean, everyone puts work into their presentation, but like they have their notes and they have their thing, like, and it was I think really smooth and cool. And, other people were on the talk besides Sarah, who also did a good job. And it was great being there and being like, Sarah, honey, take a picture with your friends. Yeah. GDC. Will you be back, Isaiah?
I hope so. Yeah.
Drop our $250,000 on GDC, our annual.
Like you said, I think hopefully we can continue to keep that press relationship going. Keep tickets to GDC, see some more talks, work out better, cheaper, financial, efficient sort of travel and stay while we're there. And I would love to keep going to GDC. It's great every time I've been.
Nice. And now for the not game section of the show, we are talking the race. So we did a race for 10K. We did the LA Chinatown Firecracker run. We alluded to it, I think, a bit. We have our medals for the people who want to go to the video version.
Which means we finished.
It's the same, yes, it's the same medal. But they have two different designs, like one in the front, one in the back, which is cool. And we had alluded to this, I think, like maybe last episode when we were talking about like running tips or whatever. Whatever episode that was us talking about it. We did the run. So again, we both did the 10K. They also offer a 5K option. There's like a biking option as well. I forget the distance on that. And I think there's like a kids run as well. There's like a lot of stuff going on associated with and it's also like, I don't think a certain day is dog friendly.
I think the same day as the biking, which is like the day before our race.
It's just like bikes and dogs and a lot of stuff. But this is put on by the LA Chinatown Firecracker Run Committee Incorporated. They are a nonprofit organization, so all proceeds get reinvested into the community, elementary schools, other nonprofits, and services and programs for the local neighborhoods of the Chinatown area. So that's cool. Isaiah, how did this race go? This was your first 10K, right?
It was. How did the race go? It went as good as I think it could have, given the adversity that we faced during the race. So how did you think it went? Before we get into some more details on the race, how do you think it went? Having ran 10Ks before and half marathons, marathons, 5Ks, all these different races. Did you feel this was a great race, a good path? What are your thoughts on this race?
I feel like I made a grave error in doing this race. The race itself is cool and fine. We'll talk more about, the sort of logistical element of it, like how were the aid stations, how were the views, how were the whatever, all of that we're into. But I'm trying to find now where I could have avoided this peril. So I come from Chicago, Illinois, a very, very, very flat place. Like imagine like the flattest place you can think of, flatten it out a little bit more. That is Chicago. We have literally in the whole city, maybe like 3 hills, I swear to God. Like, and maybe we have a couple of steep ones, but most of our hills are like very mild inclines as well, if we do have them at all. The Chicago Marathon has like one incline towards the end, which kind of sucks. But it is a really flat course. People often run the Chicago Marathon to get their marathon PR because it's one of the flatter Boston qualifying courses. Yeah. So I'm from there. Lived in SF for a while. Very hilly place. LA, kind of, I wouldn't say direct in between because it's definitely like way hillier than Chicago is. But like there are hills, but also like if you want hills, we have like huge hills, mountains in LA. But if you just train on like a general bike path as we've been training, really flat terrain. We've only been running flat, and I didn't think to like check what's this course look like. I just said, oh, LA. This run has been on my list for like a year. Never thought to really look at the course stuff, and also, admittedly, I have a hard time conceptualizing elevation changes and what that really means for how hilly the course is. I think the only thing I can do to try to aid myself in is I've ran the LA Marathon which definitely has some hills.
Mm.
And I ran the Griffith Park. There's a Griffith Park race, a trail race that happens in Griffith Park. That was hell on earth. It was like the hardest race I think ever in terms of course. It was wild. And I think that also I did that as a 10K. Maybe I did the 5K, but I think it was a 10. Maybe it was a 5K. I hope it was a 5K. It was so challenging. And I thought I was ready for that because I had ran generally in Griffith Park and I've done like hikes. But it's like, what if you had to run up the hill that you hiked on? That was like Griffith Park Trail Run. And it was so hard to me. Again, if you're a trail runner, and it's actually probably not that hard of a course. I think it was labeled as like easy. So I was like, oh yeah, cool. No, it was hard as hell. This course wasn't as bad as that one, but it was bad. And when I started running it, I didn't notice the hill at first. And then once the real hills started kicking in,
so mad.
When the real hill, because I went off, I was sprinting, I was running real fast. I was like, you know what? Maybe I can like pull out a really good time out of here. I didn't think I was going to PR because my PR is pretty high, but I'm like, I'm going to really go for it on this race.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, I'm like, the cold morning air was like hitting my lungs really hard. And I'm like, I don't think I can maintain this for 6 miles. And then even before the first mile, the hills really started kicking in and I realized we're fucked. And I screwed over and I was like, Isaiah is probably out there. Because I was having a really hard time. And this is not even to be cocky. I'm just like a more seasoned runner than you. So I'm like, if I'm having a really hard time, he is dead. He is dead in a ditch somewhere. Yeah. And I have more thoughts on like the rest of the course, but just to kind of, that's the scene. That is me saying the scene. When did you know that doom had come for us all?
So kind of like you said, the race does start off on a very, very, very small incline. In my head, I was like, okay, if this is what we're doing, I can manage this. You know, it's again more elevation than normal, which is like nothing, right? That we're used to, or that I'm used to at least. But yeah, you know, I can do this fine. Then, and we're on this path, right? We're on the street. To the right of us, we kind of got like, you know, some nice city skyline views and things like that. To the left, there's like the whole like Griffith Observatory kind of hills and mountains and everything. I'm like, all right, cool. We're just gonna do like a big loop around the base of this hill that happens to be 10K. You know, maybe we double back or zigzag or do whatever to kind of like if we need to. Great, easy run, right? We get going and like, I don't know, quarter mile in, we make a left to go towards the hills more. And I'm like, oh, that's a weird way to to path out this race. Why I guess we're going to be really on the base of the mountains here. And then we keep going towards the mountains and then it's getting steeper, a little bit steeper. I'm like, oh man, they got us like going over like a tunnel or something. This is wild. This is crazy. And then it like does a hard loop and like kind of doubles back. And that's when I knew this was a mistake. It was clear that, oh no, we're going up this mountain that I thought was just set piece decoration, right? A nice visual backing to have behind me as I'm running and I overlook the city. No, that's just where we're going. It's like kind of the Dodger Stadium hill mountain. I don't know if they're technically mountains or just hills or what, but probably not mountains.
They're hills, yeah.
Yeah.
But they feel like mountains.
As soon as I said it, I realized.
They feel like mountains.
Very much hills. But yeah, no, they feel like mountains.
Elysian Park is the park.
Thank you. So the first 3 miles of this 6 mile run was uphill, up steep hill, like hiking path,
like
hill.
Very early into these hills, and I was also getting gas myself because I just had not trained for hill work, and frankly, barely trained for the 10K to be honest. Like in terms of we obviously did a lot of running in general, and you I think probably actually ran a bit more than I did for the 10K, like for the training part. But our training was very like patchy and like kind of inconsistent. Classic race preparation where you're just like whatever. But you know, also we didn't have like monumental goals for this. This is really a, you know, kick off the dust, get into it. For you, it was more of a, hey, this is you doing a new distance. Yeah. You know, this is like not, you know, it's not like I did not expect a PR at this, and this was, if anything, I left this race being like, I think I'm gonna try to make a PR at this race specifically because it is so challenging. In my defense, there does not appear to be a course map available, which is actually kind of unusual for a race. Usually there is a course map that shows like elevation, aid stations, stuff like that. But they do have a description of the race that I found. And if I had read this, I would have known that we needed to do more work.
Really?
And I didn't read this. So
no.
This is my first time reading this description.
What did it say?
And they have a description for the 5K as well, which is a slightly different course, same kind of area. Run/walk 10K. Oh, wait, before I read it, I do want to say, like, as I was look to my left, look to my right, I saw a lot of people walking. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, kind of, why is everyone walking? Then I realized you can't fucking run these hills. These hills are fucking... There were people running. There were some people running. Some godly athletes running up them hills.
Bro.
I could not. And I would see people running with so much speed and effort, moving glacially because the hills were so steep. Okay. The 10K course is a challenging run through the hills of Elysian Park. From North Broadway, the course climbs up into the park to higher elevations. The course winds high over the Figueroa tunnels above the 110 freeway through tree-lined rolling hills, providing a spectacular 180-degree view of the city. The early morning vistas of downtown LA, Glendale, Mount Wilson, Dodger Stadium, and LAPD Academy are the hard-earned and breathtaking sights of the 10K course that very few Angelinos will ever see.
Bro.
The course descends the hills of Elysian Park and passes the entrance of Monticello de Leopoliti Park, a smaller park within Elysian Park. Monticello was named after Monticello de Leopoliti, which is a park advocate and a children's book author and illustrator. His murals can be found in Olvera Street, the birthplace of Los Angeles. Many of his paintings and drawings still adorn elementary schools and public libraries throughout the U.S. The course continues on Stadium Way to the LAFD Frank Hotchkin Training Center, where a piece of the World Trade Center is displayed as a memorial, a 23-ton and 22-foot-tall steel column. Runners then continue on the course under the 110 freeway back to Broadway, where the finish line awaits those who survived this beautiful and challenging course. 3 water stations are provided along this 10K course.
Oh, man.
And then it mentions Elysian Park. The park is LA's oldest and second largest park. The Elysian Park's name is from the Greek word paradise, Elysian, originally known as Rock Quarry Hills for the stone mining. The city council dedicated the park as Elysian in 1886. There are some key words here that would have tipped me off.
Yeah.
Challenging.
Yeah.
Hard-earned.
Yeah.
Survived. These are all words that I co-signed this. As I mentioned, I'm a bit of a runner myself. This was a very accurate description of this race. Broken and beaten down is how I felt running this. Yeah, like, you know that in I'm blanking on the name of the song, but that song by Doechii, where at the end she has the breathing exercise and she does the that was me running this race. That, like, I was, and honestly too, I was afraid during this race that you would catch up to me, not like in a ego way, but in a, if you're catching up to me, I'm really fucked. But also, you're gonna be scared. Like, I didn't want you to see me because I'm like, I cannot let you see me this broken down, because if I fall to the wayside, what does that mean for you? So I was so scared.
Yeah.
But as things went on, and like there was like a huge hill, and then it like died off for a bit, and then it climbed again.
Yeah, I think that was the bigger part. Is that like every, I don't know,
you never knew when it was over.
Yeah, like every 80% to like a full mile, like during the uphill, it would like level out, give you like a photo. Even people were like stopping off on the side, pulling over, taking photos and everything like that. And I'm just sitting here dying, gassed. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're all, like, you could see kind of like the crests kind of like start to like even out ahead of you. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get up there and it's just gonna be smooth sailing from there. Nope. You just make another turn and then there's more uphill.
Yeah, at one point running this, because also we're up in the valley, so we definitely are familiar with like the hill work that exists in Los Angeles, but I'm not as familiar with like Elysian Park and that area. You know, we go for Dodgers games, but that's kind of it. But then that's like, it's also one of those things where, you know, again, we were continually getting to know this city. I'm like, fuck, Chinatown is really close to Dodger Stadium. And Dodger Stadium is with those big ass fucking hills that, like, when you leave Dodger Stadium, like depending on where you park, like you got that walk is a workout.
Yeah.
It's a workout. It's not like you're just, you know, I think for a lot of people, especially people not familiar with the area, people listening that don't live in LA, it's like you think of going to a stadium, it's like, yeah, you drive in and then you like walk over. Dodger Stadium, it's like It's a lot. So I was like, when I saw Dodger Stadium, I'm like, I'm scared because I don't want to. I know where we're at really now. Like it really cemented in my mind, and I was like, I don't want to be here. I thought in my mind, without looking into the course, which was dumb. We'll now forever look into courses a little bit. I was thinking like we'll run through Chinatown, like more residential, not residential, but like, because my biases, what I know in my brain when I think of things, like there's, neighborhood races in Chicago and they would just be like through the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Elysian Park isn't part of the neighborhood because it is, but I was thinking we'd be more like, ooh, look at this restaurant.
Yeah,
not look at this fucking hillside.
We'd be seeing like shops and community centers.
I thought we were going to get to know like the flat streets of Chinatown. I didn't think we'd be in your park. Your park is got too. No, this park is wild. Elysian Park, I'm scared. At one point in the race, I thought, how high did we build this city? Because I really felt like we were gonna touch God, like in the clouds, up in the airways. So it was a brutal race. On a, from a personal performance standpoint, again, I was very ill prepared and I underestimated how hard this race would be. Didn't know how hard the course was because I didn't look it up because that was dumb of me. Don't trust courses just to be doable. 10K, it hits different in different contexts, and I was reminded of that at this race. But also, I like kind of regret not maybe waking up earlier to like give myself a better like physiological standpoint. Like we kind of had the like, okay, are we hitting the bathrooms before? And we had to like use the porta potties before. And I'm like, I don't really like, not really feeling it. And I felt like during the course, I did feel like I need to use the restroom sort of, but then I was pretty much fine there. I did see a restroom at some point, like later. And I'm like, you know what? I feel fine enough to just finish. Cause it was like towards the end of the race. But that also like didn't feel great from like a physiological perspective for me.
Sure.
I know for a lot of people, they like, that's different for everybody. For me, historically speaking, I've only had to use the bathroom during one race. And I just hate having to use the bathroom during a race because it's like the time is all wonky and stuff. Sometimes the line is super long. So I just didn't feel as pristine as I'd like to go into a race. I feel like you were better off because like you used the bathroom for the race. So you were probably fine on that front. But yeah, a lot of things working against me in this race, pretty much. I think the only thing working for me was I did have like a good little snack before. Like I had like some Cheerios and like a bar, and that felt fine. But yeah, it was tough. And then after the brunt of the hills was done, it was fine. And during some of the breaks, I did feel like there was a point, I forget if it was 2 miles in or 3 miles in, where I felt like I was having fun again. I talked about goals for races, and sometimes the goal is just to like feel good during the race. And definitely for the beginning of the race, I did not feel good. I didn't feel good. I didn't like it. I hated myself. I hated what got me here. And then I hit a point where I'm like, okay, I can just enjoy this as like, I do long runs all the time. It's like, we're back in the like, this is a good long run. I'm feeling good again. And then there was like one other hill, and I was like, oh, why is there another one? But yeah, I did have points where I was able to enjoy the race, which was good because that like at a certain point, and sometimes that happens during a race too, you have different goals and the goals shift as you sort of see what's realistic. So I sort of set my goals during the course, and one of them was like, try to feel good again. And then the other one was just as I was seeing my time slip slower and slower, I think I ended up landing at like okay, if I can be under like 12-minute miles, that would be a dub.
Where'd you come in at?
I came in, I did actually pull up my running stats.
I don't know how to read the chip time, but I have my pace.
Yeah, I pulled in at 13 minute miles.
Okay.
So I at least came in under the 12. Again, I'm not going to give myself a lot of credit for that because this is very like throwing this together in the midst. But I'm like, okay, this was like, for all that happened to me, this is good enough for me. But the chip time, it's like hour, minute, seconds.
I don't think. I mean,
so I ran for like an hour and 9 minutes and 37 seconds.
Can I?
Yeah.
That great.
And
great
then let me know what your stuff was.
I don't have this link. Athlinks?
Yeah, I went to just the course. If you go to like the course website and then you go to the results, it like links to Athlinks. While you like look into that, I can link it to you if you need me to. But I guess Athlinks is like maybe like third party sort of, because I noticed they have like a lot of races. Like look up your race results for all these other ones. So it definitely seems like they kind of partner with the LA Chinatown race or whatever. Were you able to find it? Or?
Yeah.
Okay,
mine.
cool.
Okay.
So what? So I talked about it a little bit more in depth on how like my race went. What was more about like how your race went besides the like I guess, shock of the stuff. Because talking to you afterwards, it seems like the race actually went, like, I'd say really well for you, especially considering the hellscape that ended up being.
Yeah. So I went in, I'm to begin with, fairly new to distance running, right? Like most of my running growing up was sports, which is more like sprinting, break, like, we're bursting when it comes to running. Trying to build up my endurance and, like, get better at long distance running. I'm actually very happy with where I landed.
Yeah.
It is better, especially again without a real formal training, especially for something that has hills and everything like that. This is like better than I expected to do, which is still not great, right? But it's good. It's a start. I hit a 14-minute 36 second pace, average pace, which in my training I generally ran at like a 16 17 minute mile.
I feel like you had said, I don't remember, but I think you said your goal was like under 15-minute miles.
Yeah, my goal was just to be under 15-minute miles, and technically I did that. So, props to me. Thank you, coach, for helping me.
I'm sorry that I set you up for failure. I didn't research the course.
You set me up for adversity to overcome.
Yeah.
How about that? And yeah, so when I look at like my rankings and stuff, they're all terrible, right? It's all like in the males in the 30 to 34 range. I placed 133 out of 140.
Well, one, you flex on all those people underneath you, so shout out to that.
Yeah, no,
two,
technically. Yeah.
I will say, and this is not to like justify our placements, because one, we are a little bit on the slower side for like a race in general. Like, it's not like wild paces that we pulled on this. But two, now that I see this course, yeah, these are like sickos doing this course. This isn't a happy fun time kind of course. So I feel like there's a chance that this is a little bit more of a like competitive race as well, because it's a hard.
Yeah.
It's like you're not gonna just like. I'm sure there are people that like, oh yeah, like we do it every year. It seems like it's a very community centric race.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the people that are running it are probably, especially like the 10K.
Mm-hmm.
The 5K was right there if you want to just have like a quick time.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely tough.
I will say, I think if this was a flatter course, I could see myself having gotten down to like 12, 13-minute pace.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like the second half, which a good chunk of it was downhill because so much of the first half was uphill, right? And having to leave, you go up, you got to go down kind of thing. But even for the going down, taking that into account, I felt great. Like I was, I like
you
like
looked
said,
good when I saw you like cross the finish line.
Yeah, no, I felt great by the end of it. I wasn't like gassed or anything like that. Like I found my footing in that second half after the hill, and I was there. I was cruising. It was great. There was that, like you said, last minute little surprise hill they threw on there.
Yeah.
But even with that, I felt great, felt good. I want to, as you would say, I technically PR'd because this is my first 10K. So that is something, and I guess I'm glad for that. But I am looking forward to a tamer 10K.
Yeah.
To like really see what I can do when it just comes to running and not hill work.
Yeah, I do think there's a chance that just the courses in general will always have like a few hills, just because it's like, I think LA is just a hillier spot. But yeah, now you have that's your PR, and that's what you're looking to, if you are looking to improve your PR, that is your first one to break. So yeah. It was really hard. It was a really hard course.
It was very hard. It was so tough, man.
Other things that go into the race. We have for people that check the video version, we have our race shirts on. I think this race shirt is really sick.
This race shirt is really cool.
It's kind of like a Tomb Raider type design with like a big snake. It's it's in part coinciding with Lunar New Year, which this ended up being later than Lunar New Year because of the fires. They had to postpone the race for safety reasons and stuff. And also, I think just to give people time, like, people have lost like their homes and stuff. You don't want to have like some big event or whatever. So it was a little bit like after Lunar New Year that we ended up running it for this year, but it's the year of the snake. So it has like this big snake on the temple kind of thing. And yeah, it just looks like really good. I don't know who does the design work. but someone like tore it up with the design. I do a lot of races.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of race shirts. The only ding I'll give it is it's not really a performance material race shirt. It's more of like a cotton blend.
Yeah,
It just feels like a t-shirt, really.
Yeah.
So my plan is to just, I think you're going to wear it like regular. I'll probably just wear it to the gym, make it like a workout shirt kind of thing. But yeah, it's cool. And the material is really soft though, as far as like a t-shirt goes. And another thing that I thought was cool about this race is they have, for very cheap, like $5, $7, $3, they sell previous year's shirts, which I thought was cool. All those designs also looked very cool.
Yeah.
They also have like biking versions for like the bike race that they do.
Yeah. They also have like dog outfits because they have the dog run. Like you could get a little shirt for your dog and everything. It was all really, really good.
We saw this really great dog decked out for Lunar New Year.
Bro, he had like the dragon costume.
Yeah,
he was
dressed as a dragon.
It was so good.
He was so cute. He was like this white, fluffy dog. And I loved him. We didn't really see any. I know they have sometimes like, we did see like a performance towards the, like off to the side in the festival. I also want to shout out the fact that this run was partnered with Angel City Brewery. So they had like, you could choose from one of two Angel City beers. And I found that in my time in LA, a lot of races don't have free beer at the end, which that was a culture shock for me running in California, because in Chicago, every race has beer. Every single race has beer. Here, it's kind of like hit or miss. Like some races have beer, some don't. Like it's definitely not a guaranteed thing, which I think is a bummer, because I feel like drinking beer is part of running culture. As toxic as that sounds, but it's just like, I don't know, a lot of runners drink beer. It's something about, like, I run all the hills and I drink my IPA.
Yeah,
But that's me. I'm a stereotypical distance runner. But that was cool. And it's like a local brewery, which is also cool, because a lot of these races tend to be, like in my experience, like maybe like Miller Light or something, like a very like big mainstream beer. So like craft beer, free craft beer. That was cool. I like that. That was fun. They had a nice little DJ for the post race stuff, and just like a couple community like event stuff or whatever. I do wish that they had more stuff at like packet pickup and stuff. Like I wish it was like more advertising other races. Is something I missed compared to other festivals that I've been to. But what were your thoughts on the stuff outside of the Hell Hills that we ran?
I think for what it was, so the big issue, so to speak, that I have with the like location of like, the stands and packet pickup and everything like that, is that there's not a lot of like physical foot space where they set up. And I don't think it's that like, oh, they should have set up somewhere else. I think just it was a good location. It's just like it inherently just kind of is more of a through traffic foot space. And instead what they had to do with it is set up like stands for people to pick up packets and get their beer, and the little like beer garden afterwards, and maybe some shops and stands and stuff like along one of the halls that they have, kind of thing. So it is, I think they did the best with what they were given, but it inherently is kind of a space not really geared towards that.
Yeah. It's crowded.
It's very crowded. And I'm a bigger guy, so crowded spaces and bigger
small,
people,
so it's not too bad. But you're like a giant.
So that aside, I think the space is really cool. They had like some vendors and stuff giving away teas, and there were some pamphlets for organizations there that were cool, and some shops like I don't know if you remember, but near the little like theater space, there were like shops behind the theater that you could have gone to that sold like, umbrellas and trinkets and bracelets and like all kinds of little things. So that was really cool. But I think the kind of like you said, the packet pickup to me is more, from my experience, has been like here's like running vendors and like people in the running community having stands and tables and come by, whether it's like athletic companies or like you say other races or whatever, UVUs and all the other like
it's not like as running centric of a race in a way. It's more like community, which I think makes sense for like what their vibe is. They're like, we're kind of just here like the run and the biking and all that is like in service of the community, so it makes sense. But I do
Which
is
like also why I thought we were going to be running through the community.
Well, yeah, they're like, we love Elysian Park, and you're going to take your ass up that fucking hill. I guess it's kind of like you come to the valley and you run in Griffith Park kind of thing. But I thought it's like we would just be running through like the streets. I don't know why I thought that because I think also too I'm getting used to like what is the race scene in LA because I haven't ran that many races in LA. Maybe like 5-ish, and even then they've been kind of like spread out because I did like the Malibu one. That's not LA, you know. And like
we did like a Dodger.
I did a Long Beach one, also not LA. I did do the Dodger Stadium one, so that one's obviously Dodger Stadium. I did the Rose Bowl too, but it's just like I'm still getting used to like what are the different races and what do they look like and like where are they at versus again it's a long time ago, but like when I lived in Chicago, like pretty much every race was like either in like a neighborhood kind of or just like on the lakefront, like which did get kind of boring. Like I do like the variety we have because like so many again Chicago races. Oh, the Soldier Field 10 mile on the lakefront and then ends at Soldier Field. The whatever half marathon on the lakefront. And where are you training? You're on the lakefront. Like you are on that fucking lakefront trail, which is also kind of makes it easier to race because then you're like, I don't know this trail already. But like it is a bit more like limited. And there's not as much also like I think I don't want to say ecological variation because that sounds a little dramatic, but sort of like it's like if we think of like environments as biomes, like the biome of Chicago is kind of the same. It's like you got the neighborhoods or the lakefront. Like that's all that there is. And here they're like, oh, we have a lot of parks that you could run through. Like we don't really have parks big in Chicago. Like the parks are not big enough to have races in them. Like really, for the most part, I'm sure there are like really small local exceptions to that, but it's just kind of a different thing. So I'm getting used to still like what is here and what can be here. Will hand your ass to you. I mean, it's also kind of like no shade to Chicago because there's plenty of big running community in Chicago, but like the different vibes towards athletics in California are just different. Like motherfuckers just be like going in on like the athleticism here a little bit because it's like also the weather's more geared towards it. Like there are the sickos running in the winter in Chicago, and I did do that, but like it's just a different. And also the running season also is geared towards the environment as well. So it's just kind of like a whole different thing. But yeah, if anyone knows any flat chill races in LA, let me know. Maybe there might not really be any. I don't know. I don't remember. I know Malibu was not
There's gotta
wild.
be some like Long Beach ones where
Long Beach wasn't too crazy either for like elevation at least. But yeah, maybe if you're just out in LA proper, they're like, we found a really big fucking hilly park for you to run in. Which that's, I got to take myself to the park a little bit more because
that's it.
One of my biggest weaknesses is hills. And if you can master hills, you really do have like a strength, like a really core strength, because when you have a non-hilly course that has elevation, you're going to take that elevation so much easier than people that aren't hill trained. So I've been needing to do that for a while. I just didn't realize that I needed to do it for this race specifically. I thought we would just be walking around like, oh, we're passing a restaurant. Like I didn't know that it would be like, we're running into the mountains. Yeah. But it was cool. Would you do this race again? Do you recommend this race? What's your feeling towards it?
Would I do it again? Yes, with the asterisk that I know what it is now and like can better prepare for that. I think would I recommend it? I guess also technically yes, assuming you know what it is you're getting into. Again, that first 3 miles of uphill running was the worst running I've ever had in my entire life. Like worse than any sport, worse than any hike, worse than anything. It was the worst. And I think it was also the worst because I expected like something way smoother and nicer and chiller. And instead it was just like I got smacked in the face with this giant hill. This hike basically. And it was like, oh, I woke up today thinking I was running, not hiking. And I did both. And it was like, all right, well, if I knew that going into it, would have been a lot better. You know that now. So if anyone ever does it, just know what you're getting into. Yeah, man, it was really rough.
Yeah. I wish I could find the elevation gain on this race because I am curious what it is.
Oh, yeah. I might be able to find it on my Apple Watch.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. Let me know if you can pull it up because I tried Googling for it and I saw someone's Strava, but it was from the 5K, which is like a slightly different course. Yeah, I recommend this race overall, but you do need to be prepared for the hill work, which is quite notable, I think. Not the worst I've had. Sadly, not the worst, but I don't know if it tells you like the gain, because I mean, it probably would tell you the gain.
They give me the elevation.
Yeah.
They say a 600-foot gain. Which,
yeah, that sounds right.
Man, geez.
You feel like it was more, or like?
I don't know. I don't even know anymore.
Well,
like, I don't have a context.
If you don't know elevation,
yeah.
So for some context, I did an 8K. That's what the race was. It was an 8K. The Griffith Park Trail Run. That elevation different, like the gain is 797 feet. So yeah, that sounds right, because this race was really hard, but it was not as hard as this one, which this one was traumatically hard for like my ability level. Yeah, I think if you have to be prepared for the elevation for sure. Even just at least mentally, just knowing like, oh, I'm going to take it really slow up these, like whatever you want to, however you want to do the race, but you need to be ready for the elevation. Other than that though, I do think some of the views really nice for sure. And I really liked how spacious it was. Maybe it was just because we like technically were like a little late. Like we didn't like go off with everybody. We were like with the stragglers. So that probably also helped. But one thing you don't want in a race is like too much congestion where you feel like you're constantly weaving in and out of crowds. Again, maybe it's because we started a little bit later, but I never felt like I had to weave much. I actually ended the race, say, like my watch said I ran less than 10K, which is a rarity. Usually it says I ran more because of how the course is designed and how much you have to like turn. But I felt like I could maintain a pretty consistent through line. I thought the aid stations were placed really nicely. I didn't really have beef with that. So, and yeah, like the stuff you get, pretty good. I think the price is also fairly affordable.
Like, $80,
yeah,
like
it's not like cheap. Like to me, a cheap race at like that distance is like you have to be like probably like 60 or lower or cheap.
I was gonna say 40,
quote unquote. But it's not like stupid expensive, because I think an expensive race, even if it's, you know, I get it, there's work, there's permits and stuff. Like to me, it's like probably right on the cusp of like being expensive, because I think once we hit definitely 100 or higher, it's like this is a pricey race. But 80 is competitive with like, it's not cheap, but it wasn't too bad of a price. Looking at it, I'm not sure what the, you know, early bird, maybe the cheap, maybe you might be able to get in there for like a 60 or something.
65, 70, something like that.
That's just me guessing. I haven't looked it up, so don't at me if that's wrong. But yeah, so recommended overall, but beware of the hills. But yeah, if anyone is in the LA area and you have experience with races and you want to recommend different races to us, I'm always on the lookout for stuff. I basically just Google around and look at, there's like, I don't know, Race USA or something that has like all the different races, and I'll just kind of cherry pick things from there. But I'd love to hear people's recs for races they've liked and what they offer at those races and stuff, anecdotally speaking.
When do you think you would want to do your next race? And like kind of ideal schedule, right?
Yeah. So I would say we're hitting what, April?
About to go into April.
It's tough because I have like a busy June with SGF. I don't know. Maybe like either June or maybe like in August. August sounds like good, because then I could like really make a proper training block. I have to what I have to figure out next. Which, you know, I'm sure we'll do here and there running content on the show. Obviously, we don't want to just be like a running podcast. So someone hit me up, start this running podcast. I've thought about doing that too. I'm like, wish I'd just be like a running content creator, because I have all these thoughts and knowledge and things I've gained. But whatever. I like making content. I like running. So one day I'll marry the two. But for now, it's just like one-offs here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go into my Holy Grail podcast, the Running Rogue podcast. And I'm going to re-listen to their episodes on the 10K and on the whatever, because that's what I want to work on for getting a PR. Then I'm going to figure out what a good training block for that is and what I want my max distance to be. I think they always recommend like super high compared. I don't think I'm going to go as high as they might recommend me. But I'm going to just guess that I'm going to do at least like, probably at least 10 miles for my long run for doing the 10K, which is 10K is 6 miles. So it's like, that's a pretty good gap, I think, in terms of endurance and strength. Then I'm going to kind of just reverse engineer, like, what does that training block look like? Is it I imagine it's probably going to be maybe like at least like a 3-month, like hardcore, no fucking excuses, no bullshit. I am doing this regimen. I have this stuff placed in with obviously a little wiggle room, because sometimes you do get like sick or something. You know, like it just makes sense to run when you're like physically ill or something. And things do come up that sometimes are out of your control. It's the GDC stuff and all that. There are scheduling limitations. But taking that into account, yeah, I'm guessing that's going to be at least like a 2 or 3 month block. maybe max 4. You can only train for so long before it's like it doesn't make sense, unless obviously with like a marathon or something. That's obviously it's a whole different thing. Yeah, and then I'll kind of engineer from there where I'm going to look into, okay, let's say I want to train for 3 months. Maybe give myself some runway into like ramping onto that official training. Okay, let's say then that's like May, June, July. Okay, is my ideal race then at the end of July? Are the races available then? And kind of just picking from there. So I am thinking of like a June to August kind of block. And then also taking into account like, okay, then maybe holidays hit and I want to just chill or something. Or maybe if like, also what happens if I don't get it? Okay, well then I have to like run it back. According to like the rogue running philosophy, which they are trainers and they're doing this podcast, I think they say I have notes somewhere on like some of their stuff that there's only, in their opinion, you can only peak like 3 or 4 times a year, like just given how much time is in a year, how long training blocks take. So it's like, okay, well, I probably only have 1 to 2 chances this year with where we are in the year to get my PR. So, yeah, we'll see. But I'm going to base it on that. What about you? What are you thinking for your running future? Are you going to keep working on the 10? I know you said you mentioned that you might want to do half marathon. Is that what you're eyeing next?
I would probably not next. I would like to at some point do like the half marathon is the next goal, I guess I should say. But I don't know if that's necessarily
the next
this
race,
year. This year, next race kind of thing. At the beginning of the year, I set out with the goal of just doing 365 miles.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
Well, I haven't ran since the race. So,
yeah, I know. But what's your miles at now?
I'd have to do the math and add it up, but I'm still fairly behind at this point. Not like crazy manageably behind. Like one thing I want to do is get into the to kind of like knock the dust off before I did 2 miles a day Monday through Friday. I think that might be something I bring back just to like
that sounds good.
Get back into the movement. 2 miles isn't great, mile out, mile back. Super doable, super easy. Could get the pace down to like a 20-30 minutes kind of thing at like whatever pace it is I end up at. It shouldn't be any longer than 30 minutes. So that's like an easy breezy or easy breezy run that I can like incorporate. And that alone will get me, I'll be making up those miles back, you know what I mean? Like every week. So, I think I'm gonna start with that. I'm not gonna think about race necessarily until I get just back into the swing of things a little bit more and see how I feel and, things like that. Plus we just got so much going on right now. A race is like the last thing I necessarily want to start thinking about and planning for. So that's where I'm at. It's just kind of knock the dust back off again. I
think,
the 10K.
I'll probably largely be like somewhat chilling in the month of April. I do want to like get back into like making sure I'm going to the gym. I also, I had that goal of getting fresh air every day, and I do not breathe the air in the way that I want to. So like, I think that'll basically be what my April is from a physicality standpoint. And also doing the research into like, what does my training schedule look like for trying to hit this PR? What are the things I need to be doing and working on to get there? And then being like, it's time to do stuff. Cause the thing that, not they don't tell you, but in a way, the thing they don't tell you about running and like being like good at running to some degree or like, doing it a lot or whatever is like, great. I've done a lot of great stuff in the sport. Now, how do I do it better? That means I have to do my training has to be better. Yeah. And that means I have to be better at my training. And I don't like being good at my training because I don't like doing my warm up and my cool down and my recovery. I don't want to foam roll and I don't want to sit there with my Theragun, even though I do like my Theragun that you got me. It is Theragun, right? Therabody. Yeah. It's a Therabody brand or whatever. But those are what the race requires, which is also another like thing that they were saying we're running with what the race requires. So I have to really look at that and, maybe I'm not just sitting there eating cosmic brownies, all day and all night. I can still eat my cosmic brownies, but it's like, maybe I am looking a little bit more into like some of the nutrition stuff. Like if I want to be better than I've been, I have to do the work to be better than I've been. And I don't even want to be as good as I've been in a lot of ways. But I do want that. So I I'll have to get back into my get back in my bag. You have to let me get in my zone. I have to let myself get in my zone, but I don't want to get in my zone. I like being whack.
Bring out the walking pad again.
I don't actually like being whack as a thing, because the truth is I end up being groggy and tired and grumpy and dissatisfied and brittle and just it's all negatives really. But the only good thing is that I sometimes get the satisfaction of not doing something, and it's like, oh yeah, see, it's nice.
Yeah.
But that's not really that satisfying. But it feels really good for a few seconds.
Yeah.
And that I chase that high.
Yeah. Not doing something feels good, but never as good as doing something, which is unfortunate.
That's so sad. Any other running race thoughts you have before we move into poll of the show?
No. Really glad I got the new shoes. I think that's still really.
I forgot that I was hating on you over that. I gotta
easy
bring back
improvement to my run
hate.
that I felt during the race. So it wasn't a waste of money, which is great.
Yeah, I'm glad. But yeah, on to poll of the show. We have our modern 2025 poll system through Google Forms, which I love more and more as time goes on. Because Isaiah had the idea of what if we had like a games and not games poll also, and it's like I think that's gonna be really fun to play with from time to time. But last episode we asked about once again we were finishing up the gaming time capsules, so we asked about what you would put in that time capsule for not this gen but last gen, which is crazy that Wii U was last gen. Wii U feels a lifetime ago. Oh my gosh, the Wii U. The majority of voters said Super Mario 3D World, which that's a good pick. That is a really good pick. Everything else was kind of split. I think the next runner-up was Splatoon 2.
Yeah.
Which valid.
Very little Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze.
Not a lot. Only like a lonely one for the Tropical Freeze. It's on my burner account. It's a great game. You know, when you have so much good stuff to pick, it's hard to know what should be there. You know what I mean? For the 3DS, we had Frontrunner, A Link Between Worlds. We really need to play that at some point.
No, it was Mario 3D Land.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where was The Link Between Worlds at? Oh, no, The Link Between Worlds was... Yeah, it's the other... Sorry, not Frontrunner. We had... 3D Land, 3D World. I was telling you.
Yeah.
The world... You haven't played either, right?
I've maybe done a little bit of 3D Land. But
I think I do have that.
You know what I mean?
You can... If you want to go back.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, 3D Land was the front runner. Next to it was Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Yeah.
Also very good.
Maybe. I mean, I guess... I hear that.
You can play it.
I fell off the Pokemon after like Black 1, you know, like Black and White.
Sun and Moon took me. It's one of the good ones. Sun and Moon. I know you're going to say that the trials are a whack, but at least you're saying like it had stuff going on. It had edges. It had intrigue. Edges and intrigue.
I'm waiting for ZA now.
Pokemon ZA?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
I'll revisit Pokemon after
the thing is, there's never going to be a gap where there's no Pokemon games. You have to just go back at some point. You know what I mean? There's not going to be like, oh, there's no Pokemon coming out. There's always Pokemon coming out because it's a $1 franchise, and they're like, get to fucking work and make this game. You're behind already. Like they're probably working on the next game now while they're making ZA. PS4 Frontrunner, Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
We were correct.
Followed very closely by God of War 2018.
Yeah.
So
what an iconic time on the PS4.
So good.
For the Vita, Frontrunner, Tearaway, also correct.
Yeah.
Some of these just had right answers. It turns out.
Persona 4 Golden, right behind it, on its heels.
People love Persona 4 Golden.
Yeah, I want to play Persona. I hear that's a good one, but
yeah, you're banned from playing until I beat Real because I cannot psychologically handle the idea of you beating any Persona before I finish.
Your one Persona.
My one. I'm still finishing it. It's all cold, but I'm still eating it. PSVR. We also won.
Beat Saber. Far and away. The people's choice.
Tetris Effect out there coming in with some people.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
That was another one that we considered for sure. And Astrobot was in there. Rescue Mission. With Super Hot as well was given a nod. I didn't finish Super Hot. I've never finished it. It's really cool.
Is it one of those? Is it just like a actual campaign to it? I guess because it's like level based. Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
And then Xbox One, definitely a bit of a split here between Minecraft and Inside.
To be honest, yeah, I can see that. It was those are, I feel like, both very Xbox games. You know what I mean? I'm surprised we didn't get a little bit more like Gears or anything else there with like write-ins. It seemed like very Xbox games, but not like Xbox games. Like I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like stuff that feels like first party or is Gears first party?
Gears it's at least exclusive. I think it's published by Xbox Studio. So I'm
like, how do I look up Gears?
I think
looked
it
up
has
literal
to be.
Gears.
Yeah.
Like car gears. Okay. Publisher, Microsoft, Xbox Game Studios. Yeah. The Coalition makes Gears, right?
I'm a
little surprised by that too. And then we have for not games. Do you want to read out people's running frequency?
Yeah. For the running frequency was a scale of 1 to 5 with 1 the question, what's your running frequency? 1 being never or less than once a year, 5 being multiple times a week. The vast majority of people, 75%, are at a 1. So never or less than once per year. Another 15 or so percent at 2 out of 5, and then only like 10% at the 5 out of 5. So not too many people are running multiple times a week. We like me, and we gotta up those numbers. We gotta get a healthy heart. We work together with the American Heart Association.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're going to be pushing for is healthier hearts, and what better way than to run?
Yeah. We also had some optional responses, which were always fun. People writing in with just some thoughts. Someone said, I agree that you should try The Walking Dead Season 1.
It's so good.
Although I still think The Wolf Among Us is the best Telltale game. Did you play Wolf Among Us?
I didn't play The Wolf Among Us, no.
Also, Final Fantasy X is incredible. It's my favorite game of all time. Persona and Final Fantasy X have the best turn-based systems. Definitely check out both if you get a chance.
Oh yeah, Fog Underwater, the classic.
That's the one. We also have shots to the DS and 3DS having the greatest console gaming libraries of all time. Unrelated, any horror movie updates? No, not any horror movie updates. But I have my dream of just hitting October as hard as I can every year. So we'll see how we got some good horror classics in last year. So I'm hoping to do some more this year. We have I just moved to a place that is significantly more walkable. Consider me influenced on the runner talk. Yay!
Hell yeah.
Though I'll probably just start with some walking once I get a nice pair of shoes. Appreciate the show.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Try to add some hills in there if you can.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a way different than flat. And of course, for my birder account, we have Wii U is a great console. Thank you. Wii U community, the Wii Unity.
Oh my God. Is that actually what you guys called yourselves?
No. Well, there wasn't enough of us to decide on what we called ourselves. But
yeah, hard to have a community of 3 people.
Yeah, the Wii U was a great console. Yeah. And I'm tired of this narrative
of us
that it wasn't. Like, oh, I'm sorry, it's not great because people didn't buy it. That's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. We call that a deep cut console, okay? Yeah. We tried. We were out there. Yeah. I was selling that console like it was like I was part of a pyramid scheme. I was selling that like I was was it Mary Kay? Oh. I was one of those. I was a Mary Kay Wii U girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't move really any units either. So Nintendo, I understand why you had a hard time because no one cared. No one cared that it had good games. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't get it.
Now we lost forever.
Yeah. Now I'll have to rebuy that console at some point. But yeah, so as always, the poll of the show is at gamesandnotgames.com/poll. And this week, what are we asking, Isaiah?
We're going to be asking 2 questions. The games poll is going to be, what cons have you been to? We'll have a list of some of the popular cons as well as space for you to write in any other ones that we maybe missed. And for not games, we're going to ask, in spirit of us having finished a race, have you ever ran a race? Let us know. And as always, we'll have another spot for just general write-ins, whatever you want. We love reading these messages. They're always really fun, really great.
And that is it for this week. You can send us your questions and topics also to the email inbox@gamesandnotgames.com if you prefer that over the form. And you can follow the podcast version of the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to give us that 5-star rating.
5 stars.
Cinco Diamentes. You wanted me to say it.
We should just add it in. This is the thing.
Yes.
And if you're an audio listener, remember that you can get the video version over on YouTube at Games and Not Games. If you like the video, be sure to give it a like and leave a comment. It helps us get the show in front of more people and grow our audience. Give us a follow also on social media. We're on pretty much everywhere at Games and Not Games. It's BlueSKy, Twitch. I think we have a upcoming Death Stranding stream at some point.
Yeah.
I think we need to lock in the dates for that, but that should be really fun. I love that game. And Janet, you've never played it, right?
Yeah.
Not really, at least.
No, I started it, but it doesn't really count.
So be sure to give our Twitch account a like or follow to know when we go live with that. Until next time, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Gang, gang.
Gang, gang.
Peace.